The one that got away. Hey, good morning, everyone. How's it going? So, you're riding home with Kenny. Mrs. Wrenching and I just went out for breakfast. So, anyway, just thinking about the ones that got away. One in particular is the one that always upset me that got away. When I was a kid, where I lived, we had our street. Across the street was like a small wooded area. And then on the other side of that was like an extension road for the highway, like an extremely long exit ramp is basically the best way you could describe it. But it was perfectly straight. So a lot of people would get off the highway, take that extension road to get on the little residential streets. And every once in a while I would see this AMC AMX, a black one. And at the time I didn't know what year it was. I wasn't that sure. I was probably 14, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I knew it was either a 68 or 69. I could tell the difference between 68, 69, and 70, even though they shared a similar body. So I knew it was a 68 or a 69. And I used to see it go by every once in a while, and I knew where the guy lived. And I always thought it was cool looking. So one day, I hear it coming down the road on the extension road. It had a distinct sound to it. And I see it go by, and I see a for sale sign in the window. And I was like, ooh. So, of course, I got my bicycle. I hopped on my bicycle, and I rode as fast as I could over to where the guy lived. And by the time I got to where he lived, he was outside. He had already parked the car, and I saw the for sale sign in it. So I started talking to him about it. And I said, how much do you want for the car? He says, I have to get $2,500 for it because that's what they're giving me on a trade-in. I was like, oh, you're trading it in? He's like, yeah, I'm buying a new car. Okay. So now, it turned out it was a 68, and it was a 390 Go-Pack 4-speed. It was black, and it had the tan interior, and I remember it had a dent in the right side quarter panel, like he had backed into something, so it put like a crease in the top edge of the quarter panel. Not bad, but the car was rust-free. So, 68, so this was probably 1981, 82, 80, 81, something like that. So think about it, the car was really only a 12-year-old car. So I was like, $2,500. I said, oof. I said, I want the car. I said, I told him, I have $1,000 saved up. I said, can I give you $1,000 to hold it? He says, no. He goes, I can't hold it. He goes, I'm trading it in. He goes, they're giving me $2,500 on the trade-in. He goes, my new car should be here or should be ready within 2 weeks or whatever the deal was. But I had about a 2-week window, and I was like, all right. So I was a paper boy, and I hustled. I hustled. I was doing little side jobs here and there. I even was cleaning people's houses to try to make money. Make an extra $40 here, whatever. I would vacuum. I would, clean the bathrooms, you name it. Anything I could do to try to make some extra money, I was doing it. So I wind up with $1,500, and it was like by the end of the following week. And I went up to him and I was like, listen, I got $1,500 in cash. Can't you just hold the car for me? No, I cannot hold the car for you. All right. Got to get $2,500 for it. Okay. So now I'm hustling. I'm working like 24 hours a day to try to come up with $2,500. And like my parents, I wasn't about to ask them for money. I know they didn't have any money at the time. So I was like, there was no way I was going to ask them for anything. So I asked my friends and stuff like that. And I might have gotten $100, $200 from my friends. I don't recall. I was doing everything. I wound up with $2,000. And it was like Wednesday before, like he was supposed to do the deal that Friday. So it was like Wednesday. I went up to him like, man, I got $2,000. I said, I'm working my butt off. I said, it'll be probably another week before I can have $2,500. Dude, he's like, I can't help you there. I gotta have $2,500 because that's what they're giving me on a trade-in. All right. I was working. Next thing I know, and I kept driving or riding by his house every day. Next thing I know, I had like $2,300. He wouldn't take $2,300. And it was like the last day. So I was like, and I could not come up with the rest of the money. So all of a sudden, I go past his house when I finally had the $2,500. It was like a day later or 2 days later, whatever it was. I think I sold my bicycle because I had a couple of different BMX type bikes. I think I sold one. But anyway, so I remember bicycling up to his house, and there's a brand new, ready for this? A brand new Volkswagen Rabbit in the driveway. So I'm like, you traded in an AMX for a Volkswagen Rabbit. So he's outside washing it, and I said, I guess it's too late, obviously. He says, yeah, and now he's mad. He says, yeah, he goes, would you believe those, and then he used some selective language. I don't remember what it was, but he used some selective language. He goes, would you believe those people at the dealership only gave me $800 for the car? $800. $800. I had $2,300 and he wouldn't take it. $800. Yeah. You want to talk about being upset? He was upset? He has no idea how upset I was. Yeah, that's always been one of my favorites. I've always had a thing for AMCs. I've always had a thing for AMCs. I love AMCs. I'm not a purist, though. I know I'm going to get some hate for this one, but if it was something like an AMX, or a machine, something along those lines, something that's what I deem a special car, yeah, then you want to keep it pure. But like my Hornet, I don't care about keeping it pure. It's a 6-cylinder, 3-speed. It's a nothing car, if you ask me. There's nothing special about it. So if I was to put a small block Chevy in it, or if I was to LS swap it, or anything like that, to me, that's fine, because it's a nothing special car. But if it was a special car, then yeah, you leave them alone. The other one that got me, I used to, and I've mentioned it before, I always like driving around side roads and looking in people's driveways, see what's there. And I was probably about 19, 18, something like that. And I remember going down some roads that I had never been on before, this neighborhood in Valhalla, New York, actually. I do remember that. And all of a sudden, I happened to see the front grille of a 69 Dodge Coronet. So I'm like, okay, well, it's not a Super B, but it's a 69 Dodge Coronet, and I realize it's an RT. So I'm like, oh, shoot. But then it looks like it's been sitting there for a long time. I'm like, oh, shoot, check this out. And it was that nasty brown that they used to use. So I go walking up to the car, and it's a automatic on the floor, console, the whole 9 yards. And the car was clean, pretty darn clean. But all 4 tires were just about flat. And it had the original plate from 1969 on it. So that tells me they were the original owners. I pop open the hood, and sure enough, it was an RT, so it had a 440 in it, 444 barrel. I was like, oh, this is golden. So I go up and I knock on the door. No answer. Okay. A couple days go by, I go back. Now, there was never a car in the driveway that I could see. I go and I knock on the door. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait. And then eventually this elderly gentleman answers the door. And I mean, he was quite elderly at the time. So this gentleman answers the door, and I start asking him about the car. And it was his car, and he and his wife, I guess it was the first new car that they had ever purchased. So I said, would you be willing to sell it? No, he's not willing to sell it. His wife had passed away. He's not willing to sell it. Okay. So him and I were talking for a little bit, and I kind of got friendly with him a little bit. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep coming back, because that's worked for me in the past, where, I build up a rapport with people, and they'll eventually let go, and they'll sell me the vehicle. So I kept going back. So finally, he tells me the reason he won't sell the car is because of the license plate. That license plate had special meaning to him because it was his and his wife's first new car. So the license plate meant a lot to him. So I said, well, why don't you just take the license plate off and hang it up on the wall or something? And he says, no, because then somebody else can register with that information and get that plate number. And he goes, I don't want anybody else to have that plate number. So oddly enough, I was driving at the time a 73 Dodge Coronet in that ugly brown. Except mine was a 4-door, because the 2-door was called a Charger by then. So I was like, I tell you what, I said, how about this? I said, I'll buy the car from you and I'll give you my car and I'll swap the registration for you so you can keep the registration on that car. So he was like, he was thinking about it. And I was like, this might work. So he said, he goes, I'm not sure. He goes, maybe I will do that. And like I said, he liked me. I built up a nice little rapport with the guy. He invited me in his house and everything else. We used to sit at his kitchen table and talk. He had a walker, I remember that. Oh, he had a home nurse too. So I'm assuming at the time, like I wasn't quite that sure, but he was probably gravely ill. Well, I know he was, but so he's like, you know what? He goes, give me a week to think about it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm like, I think I got this. So a week goes by. I go to the house. I knock on the door. No answer. Okay. I knock on the door, trying to peek through the windows and stuff like that. No answer. So I'm like, oh, shoot. So, all right. I wait a couple of days. I go back, and the car's gone. The car was gone. So I was just like, what the heck? So I go and I, knock on the door, because maybe it was in the garage. I don't know. I go and I knock on the door, and some lady answers the door. Turned out it was the daughter. And I said, where's Mr. Johnston, or whatever his name was? I don't remember. And she said, oh, he passed away. Oh. I said, what happened to the car that was in the driveway? Oh, we had it hauled off and scrapped. Nobody knew what the family didn't know what the car was. They didn't know that it was a special car just on its own. Yeah, so they had it scrapped. Yeah. That was heartbreaking. That was absolutely heartbreaking. Only thing I'm hoping for is, because the car was clean and rust-free for a New York car, the only thing I'm hoping is that the people that picked it up knew what it was and kept it. You know what I mean? And put it in their name. It's only that I can hope for. I have a special place in my heart for muscle cars. I really do. It's just this weird thing. Like, I actually will physically fall in love with a muscle car. One last quick story here. When I was a paper boy, and I was I guess I was 15 at the time, maybe 14, I don't remember. But it was 1982, so I was 15. So it was 1982, so I was a paper boy. And at the time, every Saturday morning, you would have to, all the paper boys in the area would have to, and paper girls, would have to go down to the local elementary school between 6 in the morning and 9 in the morning. And we would have to meet our dispatcher. And you would have to pay for your week's worth of newspapers that you had gotten. Basically, they give them to you ahead of time, and then you pay for them as you collect your money. Okay. So I went over there, and I had a good relationship with the guy who was our dispatcher. And his name was Blaze Franklin. Blaze, if you're seeing this, I still remember you. And I get there, and he has a brand new Pontiac Trans Am. The Kit from Knight Rider. He has one of those, but it was red. And of course, I'm in love with this thing because it was the new body style and everything else. When they had the pop-up headlights, and I was like, man, this is so cool. So, of course, I'm oogling over it, and he opens up the hood, and he shows me, it's a 305, and he opens up the hood. It was an automatic and whatnot, but it looked so cool, He goes and lets me take it for a ride without him in it. Yeah. He's like, you want to drive it? Sure. And I figured he was going to come with me and would be in the school parking lot. So I go and I drove around the parking lot. He goes, no, take it up on the road. I'm like, I don't know if you realize I'm only 15, but okay. So I went and I took it down the road, and my buddy Dominic Evangelista, I drove over to his house, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing with this? And I was like, this is Blaze's car. He was a paper boy too. So This is Blaze's car. And he's like, oh man. So he actually he still hadn't gone down there to beat him yet to pay him. So it was just kind of funny. And of course, I had to do a burnout with it. So I did a burnout with it, and then I drove it back. But I couldn't believe that he actually let me take the car for a ride. But that was really cool. Anyway, sorry, Blaze. Yeah, I did do a burnout with your car. You never knew that, but I did. Or maybe, unless you smell the rubber, I don't know. All right, that's it. I thought that was a good story. So I hope you guys got something out of my video. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. If you want to share my videos, please share my videos. Hit the thumbs up button too. That's about it. Leave a comment. I'm really trying to get to all the comments. I hope you've all noticed that. Like, I'm spending a lot of time doing that. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Enjoy your long weekend. Keep wrenching.